Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rakan, product designer working in London. And in this video, I just want to give my open, honest and top of mind thoughts on the recent layoffs that happened this week at Meta, as well as other big tech companies such as Twitter and Stripe.
Twitter just fired over half of its people after Elon Musk took over the site.
And just really give my thoughts around how to react with these situations and how to deal with them. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe for future design related videos, and let's get started. The time of recording this video is Saturday the 12th of November, and this week on the Wednesday, Meta laid off 11,000 employees, the biggest layoff in the company's history. And I just want to give my top of mind thoughts going through this and being through previous layoffs of how to react, how to deal with them, and I guess wanted to just document my design journey as well and document the important events so I can reflect on this and maybe others can reflect on this and give some inspiration during these difficult times. So let's build up some context of what happened before the layoffs and like how to react during these situations, because before the layoffs were announced there was a lot of uncertainty and doubt, and it was quite a hard and difficult few days. So on the Sunday the 6th of November, it was around 9 p.m. GMT. I remember being on Twitter and seeing this article from the Wall Street Journal just get published around on Wednesday next week. There's going to be mass layoffs at Meta, and I remember WhatsApping a few friends like, well, have you seen this? Like, this is crazy, because it's from the Wall Street Journal, a pretty reputable source, and there's always constant leaks going on around like Meta and other like tech companies, but when it comes from such a reputable source, you're like, wow, like this is going to be big. So coming into the Monday morning, and I don't think many people could concentrate or do much work. Everyone's probably like seen the leaks and the news, and the company just acknowledged this, but they wouldn't deny that it wasn't true, which basically meant it was true, right? And I feel like everyone deals with layoffs very differently, and some people just couldn't concentrate or do any work. Some people like to just blur things out and just focus on their work and not pay attention to any of these rumors. But when it's from such a reputable source, I feel like it's so hard to not pay attention, and we're only human at the end of the day. And these few days like working, it's just natural to feel these moments of anxiety and uncertainty, because you don't know what's going to be happening with your future. And I think this is what's the biggest problem when stuff like this happens, is you're just waiting for a response, and people are on sponsored visas, there's people with families and bills to pay. It just really is not a nice environment to be in. So let's quickly talk about why layoffs are happening. Put simply, we knew on that Sunday that week that there was layoffs at Twitter and Stripe. So we are going through an economic downturn. There's been previous layoffs throughout the year through companies like Shopify, Snapchat. There's hiring freeze at Google, Apple. We're going through a big tech slowdown, and a lot of this has happened because of a general economic slowdown. But let's rewind to 2020 during the COVID pandemic, where there was record usage and growth for a lot of tech products, because a lot of people were staying at home and using and relying on these products, which meant people were really bullish on the outlook for tech companies, and this meant they expanded hiring and headcount significantly. But fast forward 2 years later, the growth is nowhere near being the same anticipated levels, and things haven't kicked off, and the growth hasn't been the same, if not it's slowed down significantly since the 2020 pandemic, which meant companies have scaled too fast basically for the anticipated growth that they thought they were going to get. And in 2023 they're anticipating minimal growth, if not no growth, for a lot of these tech companies, which has basically meant they've had to act as quick as possible and reduce their headcounts before things get even more sour. But 2023 things could potentially get worse, but we can't predict the future and we don't know. But that's why we're in the situation that we're in today. One thing I want to say about layoffs is there's just never gonna be a good way of handling layoffs. It's just making the most of a bad situation here. Frankly, people are just losing their jobs, and they've got sponsored visas, they've got mortgages to pay, they've got families to support. So it's really about, frankly, making the most of this bad situation and getting through this storm. So one thing I want to say is about making the most of a bad situation here is, frankly, leaks are very hard not to pay attention to. And in my previous company at Ford, there was a lot of leaks about layoffs that were frankly true as well. They were closing a factory down and a lot of people found out about the leaks through the news. And this happens at a lot of companies, that people do find out through the media first, and being on the receiving end of this, like working through companies where this happens, it's just not a nice environment to be in, and people do eventually react and pivot, but it's just something that you have to deal with. It's outside of your control, and frankly the sooner you find out about this, I think the better, but it just never bodes well or comes across well for the leadership teams finding out that they wouldn't able to face their own internal employees first. They just waited for people to find out on the press, and then they want to acknowledge the situation later. But it seems to be just a common way or a common tactic for some corporate companies to announce leaks. Whether or not this is an effective business model of announcing leaks to psychologically ease the pain, I have no idea, but to me it frankly is just not on, and it's just not a great thing. So one of the most important things to remember during times like these layoffs is knowing your self-worth. My favorite message that I received, and the most wholesome message throughout this week of layoffs at Meta, was from a researcher, and she basically said, "This hasn't impacted my self-worth. I'm an excellent researcher. It's Meta's loss if I have to go." And this is just so wholesome and such an important reminder for everyone to remember how good they are as a person. Your design skills are really good. That's what got you to this place in the first place, to your job and your role. And if not, you're now destined for like better things to come. Like, know your self-worth and know that you can go on to better things, and this is just going to be a tiny blip, and if it's going to be the company's loss if they're going to let you go, because you're just an excellent designer, and I'm sure that you've got a lot more to offer and to come as well. During times like this, during layoffs, it's more important than ever to feel gratitude and be grateful for what we have. And things could always be way worse. Like, your career is a really long period of your life. It's going to be maybe 30-40 years long, if not longer, and there's always going to be way worse problems. So focus on the good stuff that you've got, like for example being healthy, having family and friends around you. Money cannot buy this health, and that is way more important, and that is something that I'm really thankful for, as well as having a roof over my head and things like being able to accumulate some savings so that I can navigate periods like this. Or there's important things like the experience and the memories that I've built at this company. I'm very grateful for that, and no one can take this experience away for me, and I've got that on my CV, and I can start a new journey. But things could always be way worse. There's people experiencing different hardships, and there's been generous severance packages in big tech. Let's remember this as well. Like, people made good money through the acquisitions through Elon Musk, and he gave them an 8-week severance package at Meta as 4 months, and people also get made redundant without anything as well. So let's all remember to be grateful for what we have, and if you've got good health, like, wow, that is honestly the most important thing for me. The best thing I usually recommend during these uncertain times is to really just take a break and focus on things like exercising, doing things like praying, and like meditation is really important during these times, because a lot of this stuff is outside of your control and it's nothing to do with your performance. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. When it comes to a lot of layoffs, it's not down to how many lines of code you've written, or how good your Figma designs are, or how good your leadership presentations. A lot of the time it's literally just pot luck. It's like, this organization, this department's gone, everyone inside it, and you shouldn't take this stuff like personally. Just focus on things that you can do, which is talking to friends and family, going out to exercise, praying, meditating, clearing your mind. That is what's way more important at these times. So after Wednesday, people found out whether they're staying in the company or not, but then some countries have different legislations and laws, so it's still to be determined for some people. And moving forward, the next few weeks, you're expected to turn up to work and navigate yourself around this, and this isn't an uncommon scenario. It happens, and I guess because we haven't had a recession or had one for so long, it's easy to forget this stuff. And I feel like eventually as humans, like, we learn how to navigate and steer these scenarios, and being in teams that have been cut off, maybe it wasn't a recession, but people have been laid off previously, is an experience that you learn to deal with, and people learn to navigate around this. And yes, it can be hard to deal with this in the moment, and things might feel a bit tense. You might feel a bit anxious working, knowing that the team member that you're with is going to have to go in a few weeks. But just remember, we're all human as well, and it's okay to feel a lot of these feelings. But trust me, over a 4 to 6 week period, like, normality usually does resume, and there's that famous quote that time does heal. So is this just the start of layoffs, and are there more to come? If you ask me personally, yes, there are going to be more to come, especially maybe within the next 12 months when it comes to 2023, because of the slow predicted growth and outlook and the high rates of inflation. Yes, like, this probably is a start of wider cuts, and my biggest fear is cuts are going to be made based off performance next year, and people won't be getting redundancy packages. So come January 2023, I'm making this video in November, I suspect there's going to be aggressive performance plans and performance ratings. What I mean by this, it's going to be harder to get a good performance rating, and they're going to identify a higher percentage of lower performing individuals. A lower performing individual, the outlook of that is going to now change the criteria of this, and it's just going to be an aggressive plan of getting and identifying lower performing individuals, making it a harder place to work, I feel personally. And I'm going to reflect and see how this is next year, but hopefully people still do get the ratings they deserve. And the sad thing about getting people laid off or being let go based on performances, they probably won't be entitled to a redundancy package, and it's probably a cheaper way of letting people go as well. And this is something to bear in mind. And a lot of companies have turned to this way of laying people off is by putting them on PIPs, performance individual plans, and we've seen this culture at companies like Amazon previously as well. So it's something to be aware of come January next year. So let's leave on some more positive things, and come across positive during economic downturns and layoffs, it may come across as quite deluded or selfish, and I totally acknowledge this, but at the same time we need to look at the wider outlook of things and realize that this is just a small blip. And I know it's very, very hard to think of this right now, but let's be honest with ourselves, and we look at with a longer term mindset over a 5-10 year period, we see economies always recovering. We've seen inflation at way higher levels than this throughout history, but let's rewind to 2008 when there was such a big economic crash, and look where we got 5 years later. The economy recovered. The dot-com bubble, the economy recovered there. If you look at World War II and you see what happened to cities, and they built up again over a 10-year period, we navigate through this. If you look at history, economic growth will return, and the immediate next few weeks might be tough, the next few months, but over a 5-year period, remain positive and know that countries and economies, they find a way. You'll find a way, and you will get through this. And yes, saying this right now, it might come across as obnoxious and naive, but if we look at throughout history, we've always come through this, and I'm sure you'll get through this. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I hope that you found it useful, and I just wanted to document my thoughts, and hopefully you can relate to some of them if you're navigating this big tech slowdown as well. It'll be interesting to reflect on this video in 2-3 years time, or even in a 12-month period, to see what really has changed in the economy and if things have picked up again. One thing I want to leave you all is with a quote from Michael Batnick, who's, if you ever watched the movie The Big Short, he was one of the guys that identified the 2008 recession. But when it comes to investing all these downturns of these emotions, some lessons have to be experienced before they can be understood. And these emotions or these thoughts that I've just conveyed, maybe you might not be able to relate to them unless you've gone through a layoff yourself, and hopefully maybe you can pick up some learnings before you've gone through a layoff, and you can relate to these later on. But I just want to document these thoughts, and it's really important than ever to understand like the emotion some people are going through, and they might be harder to relate if you're not going through a layoff right now. But remember to reach out for a hand for these people and try and support people as much as possible, because it is a very difficult period we're going through, and this is what this channel's all about, building this community to help out others as well. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for future design related videos. Give this video a thumbs up as well if you enjoyed it, and hopefully these open and honest thoughts can help out someone else. Comment down below how things are going in your job, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace out.